provisions of the open meeting law, General Law, Chapter 38, Section 18, and the Governor's June 16, 2021 revised order. This meeting of the Berkshire Hills Regional School District School Committee will be conducted both in person and remote. In-person attendance will be limited to Berkshire Hills School Committee members, superintendent, and business administrator. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted at this time. However, the meeting may be accessed remotely through Zoom and or Facebook. Agenda items of those listed are those reasonably anticipated by the chair. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed. Those items not listed may be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by law. This meeting is being recorded by CTSB and the school committee recorder and will be broadcast. Once transcribed, approved minutes will be made public and posted to our website. I'll start with a roll call. Ann Hutchinson.
Aye.
Jason St. Peter.
Aye.
Sean Stephen. Bonnie Vaughn Buffoni. Molly Thomas.
Aye.
Bill Fields.
Aye.
Diane Singer.
Yes.
Corey Sprague.
Aye.
Rich Tahoney.
Present.
And I am present. So we have two members not here as of yet. We'll turn it over for the superintendent's report.
Okay, good evening, everybody. We're gonna start with the good news, but John has a conflict, so I'm gonna use my prerogative to have him go first, and then we'll go back to the good news. But John has lots of good news. So I was hoping John would tell us a little bit about some of the stuff that happened over the summer, both from a kid's perspective and a staff perspective. So John, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Thank you, members of the school committee. I just want to share some of the learning that happened in Berkshire Hills this summer. I'll start with the students and I'll finish with the faculty. So students, we had dozens of students taking part in college courses for college credit this summer while still high school students. That's pretty awesome. We've received positive reports from the faculty that our Monument Mountain students were enthusiastic, engaged, and became important members of the student community, which is great to hear. The schools that they participated in were Bhrsd, BCC, MCOA, and BYU Online, where some students actually also took credit recovery courses. So that's great. And then we expanded our Project Connection summer program this year, and we serviced over 200 students. 200 plus students participated. In our high school activities ranged from Spartan Fit, SAT prep, esports, jiu-jitsu, Amplify Massachusetts in partnership with Boston Music Project. Opium Labs, is that how I'm pronouncing it? Sorry. Opium I-Team, Opium Artists in Residence, and their media and journalism program. We had students engaged in paid internships around the community and at the school. We had one of those in particular was through Greenagers, where they improved, they're working on a campus improvement project. We also have students engaged in mentoring programs in school and the community. In our K-8 groups, we had a theme of Summer Olympics, and students participated in academic and cultural aspects of Summer Olympics. They were in a competition together, and unfortunately, I can't remember which group won. I think it was Ghana. Might have been Mexico. Sorry. And we had them engaged in social and emotional learning activities. All students in K-4 received literacy instruction in the morning. They engaged in art, puppet making, swimming for the first and second graders, flying deer, which explored the natural environment of our campus, which is a great connection for kids. We had outdoor mindfulness program, hiking, language games, cooking, Project Sprout, engineering with Berkshire Museum, Berkshire Botanical Garden, and students researched and produced a brochure which compiled information on local food distribution and nutritional support programs. They as well packed over 100 bags a week for distribution to 100 food bags a week distribution of families in Berkshire Hills. Also, we'd like to thank our partners because this was a team effort, and some of them, not all, are listed here: Berkshire Museum, Berkshire Botanical Garden, Flying Deer, Greenagers, and Berkshire South Regional Community Center. Couldn't have done it without them. Thank you very much. So as we get to the teachers, I'm just going to rattle off a huge list. We had so many teachers who experienced such a difficult year, yet they spent the summer engaging with professional learning because they're good professionals. So the list begins with planning and assessing proficiencies, ready for rigor community of practice with the Bar Foundation, Ruler, which is a social emotional program we're bringing to the entire district. Creating and facilitating professional learning groups, design instruction, fostering student engagement, self-paced modern classroom mentorship, teacher leadership trainings with preschool partnerships, designing a better advisory system, learning and leading for racial equity, international student voice summit, SMARTS training, UDL trainings, ninth grade academy, ninth grade academy development. This group put in a ton of collaborative work together preparing for the ninth grade and their new academy system. We also had the Team 10 working and developing their academy. We had curriculum work across subject areas across all schools, MyCat planning, advisory development supported by Upward Learning, internship planning, AP training, externship through Berkshire County Regional Employment Board, coordinated program review preparation, life skills and therapeutic program development, self-paced curriculum development, Canvas champion through Berkshire Remote Learning Initiative, team and co-teaching, project-based learning, integrated units, and proficiency-based learning. And that just to name a few.
Great. Any questions for John? It's a ton of info.
It might be too soon to tell, but are there pieces that you know you want to keep and try to be run next summer?
We're still sort of in the evaluation phase right now. I can't say anything we want to add or leave behind.
I can say anecdotally, reports of people participating in this program has been nothing but favorable and awesome.
Great, thanks, Rich.
Are there going to be plans to take some of those courses and run them during the year?
Yes, the college, of course, yeah, we have partnerships with multiple area colleges near and far that students are engaged in dual enrollment programs this year. This is just the summer. We have many students engaged in dual enrollment and other programming at the college level.
Okay, well, let me move on. It's interesting. I don't know why Molly's our only person on the screen. I'm trying to fix it.
You have a gallery?
Well, it's on gallery, but it's not doing gallery. So I don't know.
I don't know if people speak at home on our screen.
Yeah, good.
Can I just say the hiking program for the middle schoolers? Program where they went out every day.
Oh, great, thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
That was great.
Good. Okay, great. Well, thank you very much, John.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So I think what I'd like to do now is jump back to the good news, and I'll say a couple things on a district level, and then we'll go building by building. Today was our what would be our annual faculty and staff breakfast, and a number of school committee members joined us, Bill and Corey. Unfortunately, it didn't seem to make sense to bring 300 people together for breakfast, so we did it out on the stadium field, and it was fun, and I think people are looking forward to a good year. Really interestingly, this is our largest group of new teachers in quite some time. I think we've got 20 plus new teachers, so we've got a mentoring program going. We had a series of meetings with them, and we brought in people with all different levels of experience. So brand new people, first time ever teaching, and people with 20 plus years of experience. Really interesting, diverse, fun, engaged group of people. So on lots of fronts, we're making some progress. I think what we'll do now is we'll start with Katie and work our way through. So Katie, could you tell us some exciting things happening at Muddy Brook?
Hi, everybody. I always choose a theme. So the theme we have this year is that childhood is a journey, not a race. A couple of reasons why we chose that, and it just speaks to what we're aiming to do this year. So we really want to avoid the push for blind acceleration of learning that's predicted and kind of been really publicized about this COVID year. So we first and foremost are realizing that there's a pandemic that continues and that relationships matter. So we're definitely going to use a lot of our early time to build that right up. Also, we want to take some time maybe a little less time than we have in the past, but to determine the actual, where the kids are actually and in their academics. And then we want to make sure that we address those needs after identified really deliberately and equitably. So all of that, knowing that we still have whole children here who have been through quite a bit and need maybe some catch up, but we're just going to do the best we can. Today we had a wonderful meet and greet. I had a chance to meet a lot of the parents and the kids as they brought their kids in. We staggered it a little differently than it's been done in the past years to make it a little safer. And then they were able to grab a piece of watermelon on the way out. Many were really appreciative of being able to be in the building. I think it was really helpful that people got to be in the space, having not been able to do so in quite some time. And also the opportunity to just meet people and connect faces was really good for us. Well, from noses up, but yeah, so that's where we are at Muddy Brook right now. The modus operandi for the year, I think, is just to allow the schedules, SEL, social emotional learning stuff that's already in place, and benefit from PD coordination district-wide to, move along steadily and have the kiddos experience a little more than last year, but still be safe. There's one development that is kind of neat and actually very helpful for me from the very beginning is there's a natural period in the day which has been developed so that teachers can meet and have team meetings. And while the kids are with the specialist teachers, they're going to use this time to celebrate some of the, typical Muddy Brook celebrations that they have had. And also maybe create some more that would celebrate a little bit of diversity that's going on. Of course, in a safe way, because they're separated into 4 separate groups, but they're going to work together to make the celebration amongst the 4 teams pretty consistent for kiddos so that, replace some of that fun atmosphere in the elementary school that was, even though it's not a huge assembly or a big gathering, it's still a coordinated effort to work together and have some fun. So that's from Lee. If anybody has, or Lee, it's it for Muddy Brook. And if you have any questions, please let me know.
Anyone have any questions? Okay, so we'll move up to Ben and Lloyd. Ben, share some good news, please. I think, Ben, you're muted.
I am, because it's a Zoom meeting, so somebody has to say it. It's great to be here. Thank you. I just want to say before I even start how wonderful it is to have Katie Retzel and Cynthia Carey on board at the elementary school. They've really just joined the team, and it's just great to have a set of colleagues again who are coming on with great energy and a great vision. So welcome, Katie. I'm really excited. The past 2 days, we were able to start, as you can see, the W.E.B. Du Bois Regional Middle School. Every teacher got staff member got a t-shirt today. It feels really good to start our 2nd year as the Du Bois Middle School and really starting to invest in it. Last year, Katie said she starts with the theme, which is good. The words I've been using is, the last year or decade has been compromised by COVID. This is just going to be a year that's inflected by COVID. Things are going to come back and we're going to come back roaring and still be safe. It was a good summer. We really gave staff time to either work on curriculum projects and do their work, or take the time they needed to be with family, friends, and just heal, relax, and be ready for the school year. And the payoff was these past 2 days have been a really strong 2 days back with the staff. Folks just came back ready to work, and we got down to business. It's probably the best opening that I've had in my 10 years here as principal in Berkshire Hills. What's really nice, we were able to end the summer with something we usually do in the spring, but because we were able to be outside, we had family forums. We had, last week, we had a family forum in person at the school, which was well attended. I also had a Zoom family forum just this past Monday online, just to make sure that folks who either didn't feel comfortable coming to the school or couldn't make it could have it. The forums were great because they're just a place for people to understand what the school year is like, get a tour of the building, and ask questions. But the thing I'm really proud of is 2 Mondays ago, we also held a family forum in Spanish. So we partnered with Volunteers in Medicine, and it was organized by our new Du Bois Welcome group, which I'm really excited about. And it was a really great collaboration. We brought in many families who speak Spanish, who was just a group of families who haven't felt as welcome or as engaged or as had access to the school. It was a collaboration with Volunteers in Medicine as well as with Project Connection. The bus company, Massini, came, which was wonderful to really work out a lot of the bus routes, which is a major issue. So that was really huge, as well as a lot of our Spanish-speaking staff and programming. And it was just a wonderful moment of this value that we have around equity and serving all families, where we could have forums abound. It didn't matter who you were, whether you're online and concerned about health, whether you're on vacation, whether you came to the school in English or came to the school in Spanish. So it was just really, I'm proud and I'm really appreciative of the parents who are coming together to really support all of our families. And the school year is about to start. Lots of great developments. It's still the middle school. We still have 5th grade and 6th grade and Team Green and Team Orange for our 7th and 8th grade teams. But some really big developments, I think, that I want to highlight. In 5th and 6th grade, we usually have a 5th academic period. We're calling it What I Need Now, nothing that I made up. It's something that's a pretty classic construct across the country, but it's a period where students get what they need in the moment. We're building executive skills and organization, which is really important early on in a middle school career, as well as getting the reading intervention and math intervention, or the reading, vocabulary, science, or math enrichment that they need. Plus, there's going to be time just to pick up your independent reading book and read. But it's nice because it's really pulling together a lot of the skills that we've been talking about through the years and collaboration in teams. And the 7th and 8th grade teams, Team Orange and Team Green, are really taking advantage of the collaborative time to do integrated work. So we have a lot of projects going on that are integrated across humanities, our English and social studies curriculum. And we even have a pretty fun pilot going on with our new Spanish teacher and our English teacher and ESL teacher around Spanish language as English language and culture curriculum. The big thing, of course, that I'm always so proud of and want to talk about all the time is our teams. Our team is the core unit of instructional planning. And then, of course, crews are the core unit of community culture in our school. Miles Wheat, our assistant principal and crew team coordinator, so a representative from each team, spent the summer planning crew curriculum and crew instruction. And the teams couldn't be more excited. Really, almost every single teacher, Unit A, and even a bunch of other allied educators in the school are crew leaders. There's 35 crew leaders in the school. Each crew is a small group of about 9 to 12 kids. We have poked in crews in every corner of the school, classrooms, the stage, conference rooms. It's amazing. The reason why is every kid is going to be known by an adult really well, one adult at least in the school really well. It's a point person for families, but it's also the place where we're going to have kids really bring together and synthesize all of their learning. So we're going to talk this year about proficiencies, what kids need to know each quarter that's important. And then kids are going to learn about those things. Not a lot, not the 75 standards, but like the 12 important things that are happening in your grade. And the kids are going to have conferences, student-led conferences, where they're actually going to prepare their own presentation to their family that says, this is what I accomplished, this is what I'm good at, this is what I want to work on, here are my goals. To do that, we really have to essentialize the curriculum, and we can do that by having kids really prepare a lot of that thinking and do that reflection in crew. And it's also the place to have fun, do community meetings, do challenges, play games, celebrate birthdays, and also have important discussions about things that are essential, but also things that happen that are upsetting. Something that happens in school that people don't like, we have a chance to really debrief it and talk about it. So I think that has a lot to do with really honoring children as humans and giving them a place to talk. And then lastly, I think it's just really important to talk about how we're working this year on equity and how we're aligning all of our professional learning, whether it's department meetings, our instructional learning groups, as well as a lot of the consultants that we're bringing on to do culturally responsive teaching. We're really looking at the middle school being a place where all students can feel heard and seen and have a voice. So it's really just, I'm pretty excited about this school year. Thanks.
Great, thanks. Any questions for Ben? All right, so I'll share some stuff from the high school. Christy asked me to do this because she has a family commitment, and she'll be back with us at our next meeting. First thing is, and I think Buildings and Grounds will talk about this, but a big thank you to Steve Soul and his team. They did a ton of work across the district, but particularly in the high school. So Christy and her folks would like to thank Steve and his folks. There's a new seating area in the back hall where lockers came out, and that looks great. That's the first section of several in the high school beautification project. Larger, improved early childhood space with preschool opening in the fall, and we're pursuing our Chapter 74 application for that. So that will become an approved program, hopefully. We also received a $75,000 skills or capital skills grant for advanced manufacturing. That work is in close partnership with Steve Boyd and his business and a number of other local businesses. That's a big deal to invest in what used to be called vocational education, right? Career technical and vocational education. So we're really excited about that. At Monument, a huge change in staff. They're welcoming 13 new faculty and paraprofessionals, and they're bringing lots of energy. When Christy sent this to me this morning, there was a long-term sub English opening, and I think we've filled that, so that's good. There are a couple remaining paraprofessional positions to field. Sports are underway, preseason practice and practicing now, and we're planning a student tailgate for our first home football game against Lee on September 10th, assuming we're in good shape with COVID. Obviously, football's outside, so we have a little more flexibility there, but please come down and join us for that. The high school's moved back to a full 8-period schedule, and students are enrolled in the full array of course offerings again. The 9th grade team did a lot of work over the summer to prepare to the shift to honors distinction, and have great plans for welcoming the class of 25 to Monument next week. Another thing is probably the next email you'll get from me will be in reference to an application we put in with the Bar Foundation. So we've had the Mass Ideas Work support high school redesign from an educational perspective, not from a facilities perspective. We were invited by Bar to put in an application because they're following up on what Mass Ideas is doing, and we hope to hear early next week about that, but we're very excited about it. So that's some of what's going on at the high school. Any questions about any of that?
Just a comment, with all the new hires, and it kind of got done a little bit this morning where Christy was giving a little bio on some of the new people, where they came from and stuff like that, and especially right now with everyone starting the school year, open eyes only. I don't know how much time it would take, but it might be nice to get pictures and little write-ups on the new people. All the buildings.
Yeah,
and get them up on the website.
No, we'll do that. It'll be in newsletters, and a little later in the agenda, I'm going to talk about Parent Square, which is the communication system that we moved to on the student recommendation. And I think we'll borrow some of what we've seen in other schools or colleges, where we'll take advantage of Instagram and Facebook and highlight maybe one teacher a day for the new teacher a day for the first month of school, and introduce them, at least electronically, to the product. Cool.
And two things on the start of the sports that you mentioned. One is historically, Monument played Lee the last game of the football season. But I think it's great opening up at home, it would be every year, but against Lee. I think that creates a lot of energy and excitement. Not having it be the last game, I know was kind of tradition that's lost a few years ago, but I think that's a really good move for both us and Lee. And secondly, as a parent who attended some of the parent meetings last week, we learned that many of our sports have now joined the Pioneer Valley Athletic Conference, which was news to me as a parent and a school committee member. I have a lot of strong opinions on it. I've heard a lot of strong opinions on it. I'd like to have some conversation at the school committee level of that at some point. I know it's not on the agenda tonight, but there are major concerns about whether this is in the best interest of our students. There's 4 o'clock games scheduled are 2 hours away. Parents can't attend. There's been no discussion with us about the impact on our transportation budget, so I think this should be put on the agenda for a future school.
Yeah, on top of that, Rich, and I pointed out to you this morning, we voted a year ago to only play within Berkshire County because of COVID. We've never rescinded that vote.
Oh, well, maybe we need sooner action on that then. I don't know how to do that.
Yeah, we've never rescinded that vote. As of right now, the school committee's vote was that because to keep the cohorts within Berkshire County, we were not going to play.
Yeah, I'll go back and research it. I obviously wasn't prepared to do it tonight.
No,
I wonder if that had a sunset clause in it or not, or it was tied to prevailing conditions or numbers. But let me look at it.
Yeah, that's good.
If we need to schedule an off-schedule meeting, we'll follow
But
that.
I do think it's.
I view that as a minor issue. I think it's broader.
There is, and you know, I don't let surprises, I never have. And I think the school committee should have been informed prior to the vote. And I also, I can think of a bunch of reasons, including not putting our kids on buses for hours. I think they could do better things than just sit on buses and go to sporting events. When I understand that there's less kids in high schools around here, but the only high school that's closed that I know is St. Joseph. So there's still teams that we could play within Berkshire County.
So what I'd like to do, if it pleases the committee, is form a little ad hoc group to gather some information in advance of our next meeting, so we can at least present the facts as we know it in some framework, and then share an initial report with the committee, and then maybe charge the ad hoc group to dig a little deeper or take some.
That sounds like a good idea.
Come up with some proposals to come back to the committee as a whole. Good. So what I'd like to do now is ask Julian if you have any, and you may not because you've been on vacation, but if you have any student member items.
No, I don't think we do. It's always been a camp for most of the summer, so it's been hard, but we're sort of in what we planned with Dr. Dillon last spring is sort of putting together a list of items and an itinerary of things that we can report on throughout the year and having some sort of ideas that we touch on each week and the bigger problems that we want to sort of address throughout the school and the things that you all are sort of interested in hearing about. So if you have any ideas or any sort of things to add, please send us an email of things that you'd like to be sort of kept updated on and you'd like to know about going on within the school. I think everyone's excited to go back to school full time. Even in masks, there's sort of a small price to pay for being able to go to school in some sense of normalcy. And I think we're all excited to see what happens to the lockers, to sort of be able to use that new space because those lockers were never used. So finally something that we can use, and the outdoor classroom has been really great. And to see how this new schedule works. It's the third schedule that we've had in 3 years, maybe 4 years. So hopefully this one is here to stay and we'll be here for a while.
Great, thanks, Julian. So the next thing, and we got some helpful feedback on this. Every year we present the school handbooks to the committee, and there's one for each Muddy Brook, Du Bois, and Monument. Monument, we inadvertently sent one with some, initially, with some appendices with old dates in them, and we went back and corrected it and sent a clean copy. I think I caught a lot of the feedback. There are always things we miss, and I think what I'd like to do is ask for a motion to approve them. Did you want to do it all together? Or
Yeah, we'll do it all together.
Okay.
Yeah,
but let's
Do you have amendments? Did you say?
there's a money broken in the voice.
Okay, so let's do one at a time. It'll get too confusing to it. That's fine. So why don't we make the first motion?
Motion to approve the monument high school handbook.
Seconded.
Any discussion?
I would like to propose an amendment page 15 under the heading Progress Reports.
Is this Monument Mountain?
Monument Mountain, yeah. The first sentence of that paragraph reads, MMRHS teachers will update student grade reports using the online program Power School. I would like to amend it by striking will and replacing it with shall within a reasonable time, but in no event later than 5 days.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Rich, you want to give any discussion on that?
Yeah, I mean, I've talked to a lot of people about this in the past. I'm kind of anti the Power School thing. I think it's a sad day that the relationship between parents and public school teachers is reduced to an app, but that's where we're at, and that's where we've been at for a long time. But that is incumbent that the data that is in Power School is correct and updated, if that's what parents and kids are going to be relying on. And I think it's good. The handbook is designed so that there's clear expectations on both sides. So I just think, I think the 5 days, I think teachers should do it as soon as they can. I think 5 days is the outside date. It provides as much flexibility as possible. I'm not married to that. But when parents look in Power School, they have the data is current. And the dumping of data in the week before report cards is not good.
Peter, do you have any comment to that?
I get the intent of it. The only thing I wonder about is if you're English teacher working with 80 kids and everybody writes a 10-page paper, is it realistic to expect that you turn that all around in 5 days?
Well, the 5 days is triggered when the grading is complete.
Okay.
So once teachers can do the grading, I'll put on data entry. I'm not talking about teachers can grade on their own scale, when timetable, whatever they do. But they gotta do the data entry consistent with them.
So you're saying once the marking period ends, they have 5 days to get?
No. Once they graded a paper test,
Okay.
they gotta get that data into Power School in 5 days. They can't put all the data entries in.
This is under progress reports, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And just so people know that, I don't know, and I've had different people explain it in different ways, is when things are loaded in a certain way and then things are entered, it shows a 0. So the kids will be looking on their grade and they got a 50, but I see my friend over here at 9, they have 10 zeros, then they say, but I did that. The teacher just hasn't entered it, and it's scored a 0. And it all gets fixed at the end. It's just the confusion around this totally unnecessary.
Well, I mean, and I think what you're saying, right, in part is that the purpose of sharing feedback is so people can make changes. And if you wait to the end of the marking period or the end of the semester, then that window's closed.
That's absolutely the case. And parents are supposed parents don't get those home anymore that Jimmy's failed 3 tests. They're supposed to be looking on Power School to find that out.
Yeah.
What happens is it just creates a lack of reliance. You just end up not looking at Power School because you can't trust the data that's showing up there. So that's like why you have to.
Okay.
I just worry, to me, it seems more of like a training and expectations setting thing. I don't know that just putting 5 days in here and changing things. I worry about.
I hear what you're saying loud and clear, and I'll work with the principals and the teachers to move.
I agree with Cory. I don't like the idea of being a former teacher of it's got to be done. I would assume that as part of the professional responsibilities and duties of a teacher is that it would be done for parents, Rich.
And if it's not,
After I do a paper, I set up the classes, I sit down and put them all in.
Yeah.
And that should be part of the professional responsibility.
It is, and it's in the job description,
Yeah.
and it's in other places, and we'll reinforce that.
So,
I could 2 proposals.
go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, the other thing is, not all parents can reach out to Power School all the time, and I heard about a lot of kids who were failing, and the parent never knew it. Now, did they not know it was a Power School, it was Power School? There was a teacher in that service for my kids, who took grade, all the grades in is very good, like we got now. So there's always people, but there are parents out there who can't see Power School.
You know,
Right.
So one cool thing that's in Power School is when I go into Power School and look up a kid, and I've got like super fancy access, I can see when the student or the parent last checked, right? And there's some people who are like so on top of their compulsive, they check 4 times a day, and I feel badly for them. And then there's some people.
I feel bad for the people who live with them.
And then there's some people who never check or check once. So I think part of what I'm taking away from this is there's what you're recommending for this, but there's a much broader thing. If we're using Power School as one means of communication, and we can see that people aren't receiving that message, then what other things can we do to connect with parents? And for some people, Power School might be great, but other people might benefit from a phone call or a letter or a email or any number of other things.
But the other, I think what Rich though is saying, Rich, correct me if I'm wrong, but if the data going in isn't there, then no one's using, it's a system that just can't be relied on.
Yeah, no, I hear you, and the principals hear you too. We can work on this.
So,
So I have 2 options here, is I can draw a motion, or I can change it to take, I hear what Bill's saying too, about they say, teachers shall update within a reasonable time. You want to be on a reasonable time language? Yeah. Strike the whole thing.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
That's fine.
So I amend my motion, or withdraw my motion, my new motion is to just add the language that minor run teachers shall, within a reasonable time, update student grading reports using the online program.
I'll withdraw my second and then add the second.
okay, so we have a motion and a second. Let's take a roll call vote on this one. Ann?
Yes, I just want, I have one more question. So it says additional progress reports may be completed in order to keep the parents at any time. What does that mean? Does that mean writing, does that mean call the parent? What does that additional progress report refer to? Is that just because we know that in Power School, and I don't know how to get in my Power School, so I never saw it anyway?
I just think that it leaves open the door that it's not just Power School, that a teacher can do what we're talking about.
That needs to be clear to teachers or kids, they need to make definite contact with the guardian parents ever. Because there were kids who failed that year and their parents never knew.
Yeah, no, that's what we don't want to have.
For sure. So it's gotta be, everybody says they said that there's families out there who can't do Power School for whatever reason. And yeah, there are families who check for them today.
Right.
But I think that needs to be really clear all the way along with this, gotta be other kinds of.
Well, and I think again, what you're talking about are multiple interventions, right? So we start with Power School. The best teachers also reach out to every one of their students' parents at the beginning of the year before things are great or terrible, and build a relationship, and then they continue to reach out during the year. And students who are doing work and moving forward need feedback, and students who aren't doing work and aren't moving forward need feedback.
I think, yeah, the only problem with that is like, you're right, but that's a good teacher, that's the perfect teacher. The point of this is to set a minimum for the teachers that might not be sort of what we would say an exemplar example. This sets the standard that all teachers are to follow. So I think it's important that gets brought up. And are we using Canvas as well this year? Because that brings in a whole other issue, it's like the syncing between the Canvas and the Power School. There were times last year where I got to the very end of the marketing period and I wasn't even sure of my grade. So are we using Canvas this year?
Yes.
Okay, so I wonder if there's a piece in there that maybe it's not just Power School, but there's specific language including Canvas saying that teachers have a responsibility to keep Canvas and Power School updated. Maybe changing Power School to Canvas as well, or maybe even taking away Power School and just including online programs.
I would rather have that online program than you're not pigeonholing either one.
I mean, the one thing is this is a handbook, so it's not like we're writing a policy.
Right, yeah.
A handbook's year to year. We're certainly going to be using Power School this whole year. So we could leave it as Power School, which is the formal record, or we could extend it to be Power School and Canvas if you prefer.
And I just want to say, there's also a responsibility on the students and the parents' part to reach out to the teacher. It's not just the teacher has to reach out to the student and parent. It's got to be on both sides. But hopefully that.
Well, you can't rely on the student, that's the problem, you have the teacher, the parent, it's multifaceted, but the parent is watching it all the time, doesn't think anything's wrong. Because it's great, everything's going great, and then
Well,
grades are loaded into the year, some that were 3 months old, and you found out they failed the test before. I mean, I'll take from personal experience, I had a kid who in the middle school was grade dropped 15 points. And there was no way of knowing that until the day before the grade came out. You can't do it.
I had the exact same, just like when I get to the middle school too, that nothing until the final report card, and all of a sudden there's all these things that were correctable earlier, we know different. I mean, so what's happening to us, I can imagine well.
Yeah, we're the committee members who are all.
Back in the good old days, before data and computers and grading programs through this, we used to hand out warning notices and commendation notices whenever. I remember sending a warning notice out the third day of school. That the kid I kicked out twice, he's failing. What are you gonna do about it? So, I mean, I think there's a lot based on the individual teacher, and I think.
I think
It's loud and clear. I think.
this language works, and then I've got an obligation, I'm hearing you loud and clear, to sit down with the principals and the teachers and reiterate the importance of ongoing formative feedback so that students are afforded the opportunity to make changes. And parents particularly need to know about what's going on so they can be partners in that.
Okay, so we have a motion, and we have a second to the amendment. So, Ann?
It's the very,
Just to put it within a reasonable time, without.
Jason?
Aye.
Molly?
Aye.
Bill? Aye. Diane?
Aye.
Cory?
Aye.
Rich?
Aye.
And I, it's unanimous. Rich, do you have other?
Well, I was gonna just make a motion to, and I will tell you, the language in the money book, or the Du Bois thing just reads a little differently.
So we're still on monument, we're doing one at a time.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm done.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve the handbook as amended, and we have a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote. Ann? Jason? Molly?
Aye.
Bill? Aye. Diane?
Aye.
Cory?
Aye.
Rich? Aye. And I, it's unanimous. So the monument handbook is approved.
Motion to approve the Du Bois Middle School.
Second.
Middle school handbook.
I have a motion by Rich, a second by Bill. Amendment.
I'd like to make an amendment on page 18 under Power School to add the following language. Teachers will update within a reasonable time student grade reports using the online program Power School.
Just a clarifying question, where do you want that?
It should be the last sentence of the paragraph.
And can you just say it one more time?
Sure, and I'm just pulling that language from the other one.
Yeah, should be the same
Yeah,
language.
teachers will, within a reasonable time, update student grade reports using the online program Power School.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, so I have a second by Molly, a motion by Rich, and it's an amendment to the Du Bois handbook. Discussion. We may have discussed this to death, so.
No, you like this. Save you the discussion, you like this.
Roll call vote. Ann?
aye,
Jason? Molly?
Aye.
Bill?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Cory?
Aye.
Rich?
Yes.
And I, it's unanimous. Now back to the original motion, which is to approve the W.B. Du Bois Regional Middle School handbook. Do you have any other amendments?
I do not.
Anyone else? Hearing none, roll call vote. Ann?
aye,
Jason? Molly?
Aye.
Bill?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Cory?
Aye.
Yes.
And I'm aye, it's unanimous. Now to Moneybrook.
Motion to approve the Moneybrook Elementary School handbook.
Seconded. The motion by Rich, second by Bill. Any amendments? Hearing none. Any discussion? Still hearing none, roll call vote, Ann?
Aye.
Jason? Molly?
Aye.
Bill?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Cory?
Aye.
Rich?
Aye.
And aye, it's unanimous.
Okay, so thank you all for that. We'll make the 2 changes in each, the high school and the middle school one, and we'll get these out to parents.
Usually there's drought and can't communicate through literate methods. So I think it's important that the guidance counselors, teachers identify those issues, we should refer to our needs commission and out to.
Yes, yeah.
I think it's important that everybody gets together. I walked in just by having been for someone else that got all issues with that, and gives them the opportunity to do things and nothing better.
Okay. Yeah, but it's a point well made, and we'll do that, and we'll do that also in collaboration with the folks at BIM.
Can I just, the online versions of these, I don't remember, I think it's the W. Du Bois one, all the, every single subject is a hyperlink. So I don't know who's I don't know how that happens, but the other 2, because most likely these will be accessed online and we're not gonna print hundreds of these.
Right.
But when you go on this, you can click on each hyperlink rather than having to scroll through, right, 100 pages of information. So just knowing how much important stuff is in here, and that can be asked that each section is made into a hyperlink at the table of contents that is much easier to access, because this is very overwhelming. Does that make sense? So like, that's
No,
why
I totally hear what you're saying.
like, is that, the one wrote the one doesn't. Yeah, so I, the other 2 just be made to do that, so it's so much easier. So if all of these are blue, indicating that they're hyperlinks, and then these you have to manually scroll.
You have to look at it online.
No, I know.
89 pages of information.
Oh, I see what you mean, yeah.
So you go to the handbook, you want to see what policy is
Yeah, right,
on,
yeah.
like after school something, and you go click on it, and you go right
It's
to
a
it.
project in the web design class.
That sounds.
Right, like I don't.
It's not gonna be this year, you're gonna come.
No, I think I can do it this year. I don't think I can do it for Monday, but this one's good to go. We'll put these ones up the way they are, and in a few weeks, we'll do it.
Erica Milky, go ahead.
Thanks, Steve. I just wanted to point out that for those of us that are joining remotely, it is extremely hard to hear some of you guys communicating. And particularly, I couldn't hear anything Ann was saying. I mean, I know the masks are making it really complicated, but if you guys could maybe just, I don't know, like just speak super clearly towards the mic.
It's not just you, it's me too. The air conditioners are also on, so we'll all work really hard as our speech teachers taught us to enunciate. And I'm torn. We could turn off some of the air conditioners in here, which may help, but
I mean, then you guys might all pass out or something, so.
The meeting,
Right, yeah. That's how you start a meeting, right?
Yeah, that's one of the reasons that if this continues and we're wearing masks, one of the reasons that we could go to completely remote, because it is hard to hear even while you're in this room. So we'll work on it, and if we don't improve, we may have to talk about that.
We've never followed through on the suggestion that we use one of the outdoor classrooms for a meeting.
We don't have Wi-Fi yet.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a problem for us.
Want to be Wi-Fi in the open to the public then?
I'm a big believer that we've had more people in attendance at meetings using these virtual meetings than we've ever had before. That's right. I mean, how many meetings have you sat at one of the schools and the only people in the audience were maybe Terry or other than staff? And so that's the only reason I've really fallen for these meetings, because I want people to hear what we're saying. If we're gonna do something good or stupid, let people know about it. That's the only reason.
Okay. Moving along, school opening. So obviously school starts on Monday, and we're really, really excited to welcome kids back. The buildings, as I've mentioned, look great. The floors are shiny. Steve's people have been working hard. The secretaries and school staff have been working hard. We continue to operate, and some of this overlaps with the COVID-19 stuff, but there's still very specific federal guidelines around busing and bus capacity, and we're working through that and trying to figure out ways we can be flexible and get more kids to programming at Berkshire South. And the Massini Bus Company has worked with us to solve a whole number of problems, so I'm happy about that. Other questions, and I'll get to, I think, the rest of it in the context of COVID-19. Other questions or things people are wondering about connected to school opening? The summer professional development, John really addressed, but we're going to skip that. The vacancies, we still have a few paraprofessional vacancies, and we're working on that. And I'll likely come back to the committee sometime with a plan around how we can recruit better for paraprofessionals and maybe develop a career ladder. So somebody could start as a paraprofessional and then maybe go to a different role and then ultimately land in a teacher role. So I'll come back to you on that. Connected to vacancies, I'm also starting to be involved. There's lots of diversity, equity, and inclusion work, but there's a group connected to MCLA that's trying to do some work around that connected to recruiting and retention. So I'll share some updates on that soon. I think that's really it for vacancies. The COVID-19 update. So the big news is on Tuesday morning, or before, but they met on Tuesday morning, the commissioner asked the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education to give him the authority to do a mandate for universal masking. They did 9-1 with one person opposing, and the next day he shared guidance around that universal masking for everybody in schools through at least October 1st. I'm very proud of our committee. We were one of the first districts in the Commonwealth to get ahead of this and do that. And now I think we're one of 3 to have a vaccine mandate for staff.
I think we were the first. I know we were.
No, we were the first, but now I think there are 2 others. So I think that's very exciting. One of the things that the commissioner did say, and he's going to share additional guidance on this, is in addition to the universal masking through October 1st, he set a very specific target that if a school community, like a building, had a greater than 80% vaccination rate, staff and students combined, then he will later share additional guidance that that building will not have to wear a mask. We need to sort of see the details of it and get additional medical advice. I think it's highly likely that the high school's already way above that number, so that's a real possibility. Until there's a pediatric vaccine, I don't think mathematically the middle school can get there because only 12 and up are eligible. And it might be close, but I don't think you can get 80%, and obviously the elementary school can't. So we'll wait for the commissioner for additional guidance on that. There are lots of links to the DESE website about this. The big changes are we're going to go ahead and do much more focused testing than we have in the past. And that's funded through the state and CIC and the Broad Institute. We'll be doing weekly pool testing. It has another name now that's more attractive than pool testing, but it remains pool testing. And then we'll be able to use the rapid tests, not just for symptomatic people, but for everybody. And I think we'll have access to PCR testing as needed. So we're getting more information on that. The CIC is running it, and we're moving forward. I also hired a floating nurse for 2 to 3 days a week. And I don't think she's on the personnel report, but it's Robin Aloisi, and she's going to work closely with our existing nurses to help manage some of the workload around It also gives us a potential cushion if one of our nurses gets sick themselves or is out. So I think that's good.
Great. Glad to hear that.
On the 80% thing, is there a way you have plans of how you're capturing that information?
Yeah, so and this is really interesting. So I read a legal opinion that our nurses have access to the state database for vaccines, and the legal opinion states that I can authorize or empower the nurses to check that, and that's good. But it won't capture the totality of people that are vaccinated. So some number of our staff live in New York or Connecticut, right? So if they got vaccinated there, they won't show in the database. So we'll reach out. But what we'll do is we'll go through the state system first and sort of see everybody who's vaccinated, and then we'll have a subset of people that appear to be unvaccinated, and then we'll reach out to those people and give them an alternate way to share that they've been vaccinated, and then we'll narrow it down to a very small number that aren't, and we'll reach out to them about getting vaccinated, demonstrating a medical exemption, or requesting a religious exemption, and we'll move forward from there. So again, I feel really good about that, and I think we're moving in a good direction. We're going to be masked in school almost all the time. The exceptions are mask breaks, which would typically be with the windows open, eating meals or drinking, or if a staff person is alone in a room, then they don't need to wear a mask. And when people are outside, obviously they don't need to wear masks. From an athletics perspective, outside athletes don't have to wear masks. Inside athletes do. So the most relevant thing now is volleyball. Right? So they would wear masks inside. I think that's the bulk of the COVID thing. They're very specific sort of scenarios that DESE and the Department of Public Health put together that give guidance around all sorts of different contexts. This is nuanced and complicated, and the guidance has changed some since last year. So while we'll still try to do some social distancing isn't a requirement. There's some other things like that. So everybody asks me, and I can look it up, but mostly I'm going to defer to the nurses and the public health people around this. The other thing is out of state travel is not explicitly discouraged or prohibited as okay. So again, I think we're in pretty good shape.
Everything has unintended consequences through policies, and I might be jumping the hurdle here a little early, but this October 1st aspect, I understand that we're going to get clarification. I'm reading some from other states who have put some of that type of thing in, and they say that if so many people are vaccinated in the building, all those vaccinated people don't wear masks, and the unvaccinated people do. In a high school setting, to me, if that might be the case, I think we have to be very aware of bullying and discrimination being applied to those people who are wearing masks, and that concerns me greatly. And I would hope that no matter what DESE does, as Corey had said earlier this summer, we want to be ahead, and we have been ahead of the curve, that we set a policy and say, well, we are very concerned about the effects of non-vaccinated students being picked on and being bullied and being made fun of by non-mask wearing personnel.
Yeah, no.
Our mask mandate doesn't sunset on October.
Pardon me?
Our mask mandate doesn't sunset.
Yeah, I was going to say.
No, and I'm wondering, would it be possible that we just keep our mask mandate?
It totally could be, and unless you take action, and not, we will.
I think we solved the problem with the vaccine mandate.
Yes, I agree.
So I have one question for the audience. Amanda Hanlon Hockler, go ahead.
Hey, Peter, I just had a question around COVID exposure. And I know last year, if someone in the class tested positive, you would quarantine and send the whole class remote for a few days. But I know that SC is also requiring in-person school with no remote option. So are you going to, can you tell me what the plan is if someone in the class tests positive for COVID?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to tell it to you, but I don't have the guidance right in front of me, and it would be very, very easy for me to misspeak on it. So what I'll do is I plan to share it with the whole school community anyway, and I'll do that. There are a couple different approaches. There is a quarantine and remain in school approach, which is one of the things that DESE is proposing. There are a range of approaches, let me share the guidance and the range of scenarios. And I'm working with the nurses on getting out a simple to digest, like 1 or 2 pager around what most likely will happen in most scenarios. There are a whole sort of host of other things that could happen, but stay tuned, it's coming.
Okay, yeah, I guess my concern is that if you send a whole class remote, at least they're meeting with their teacher remotely, but in a situation last year, you know, a bus full of students would be quarantined from lots of different classes, and there wasn't really a great plan for kind of engaging with those students academically. But if you get back to us, that'd be great, because if kids are going to be out of school 8 to 10 days at a time, like that affects families and work hours, and what are we going to do with kids and how are they going to get educated? So I appreciate your
To clarify my language, one of my really strong nurses is on the meeting and sent me a text. What I was trying to refer to is called test and stay, and that's
Okay.
a particular situation if somebody is a close contact and not symptomatic. So this is doing what you're talking about, which is trying to keep them engaged in school and monitoring the heck out of them, like on a daily basis, to see that things are okay.
all right, I think that's awesome.
Yeah, and nicely, as you're talking, another nurse reached out and reiterated it. So I'm leaning on the nurses on this, because it's their job to totally understand this. It's my job to understand it, but they're really good at implementing it. All right, so
That sounds great.
the goal in all of this is to try to keep kids in school as much as possible. And what you said before is worth restating, because I've had some calls about this. Is my child able to participate remotely? And what the commissioner decided is, with the exception of the online internet-based schools, the 2 for the state, and the little academy that Pittsfield and some other districts are running, students are not afforded the opportunity to do remote learning this year.
Okay, which I think is good too, but I just kind of wanted to, I just wanted to know what was kind of different over last year. You know, things have changed a little bit, and just kind of curious. So yeah, if you're going to rapid test the kids every day and see if they can stay in school, I think that's a great plan.
Right.
Thanks, Amanda.
Okay, great. I'm not seeing any other questions there. All right. So that's the COVID-19 thing. Let me give you a little update on Parent Square, and I talked about it a little bit before. When there's a snow day, when a bus is delayed, when something happens, I reach out to you through the school messenger, right? And you get a phone call. If I have something neat to share, I might put it up on Facebook or Instagram or on our website. We can do a better job of communicating, and we're really good at writing 8-page newsletters that are too content rich and that are hard for people to get through. So we're gonna try to break things up better into more digestible chunks that we're sharing one or two ideas at a time, maybe more frequently, and then those ideas would go to multiple places. So probably nobody over 20 looks at Facebook at all, right? And Facebook is the domain of the school committee members and people older. And younger people are looking at Instagram or Twitter or Snapchat or any number of other things. We're going to use Parent Square as a central place to send communications from. We purchased it was not particularly expensive, and in doing so, we canceled subscriptions to all these other things. School Messenger's one, Constant Contact was another, there are a few others, right? So we're using one aligned system. We're just starting to figure out how to use it. This came to us on the recommendation of students from the high school, the YATS group, pushed for this really hard. They researched it, found it out, found a number of other schools that are doing it. So we did what we should do. We listened to the students, purchased it, and are moving it forward.
So you put your information into this and it disseminates it to all the other places?
Yeah, which I think should be a huge time saver. And then we have aspirations of, right now, like I share a lot of information. Doreen, my secretary, shares a lot of information. Tom Roy at the high school disseminates a lot of information. The principals do, the school-based secretaries do, and we think we can have some criteria around the way we message things and then get a lot more information out. So I'm excited about this. So stay tuned, some interesting things should happen there. And as I mentioned before, this might be the great way to introduce the 20 new teachers and the 10 new paras, right? And then when you bump into somebody at Price Chopper, you know who they are. So the last one, I think on my part of the agenda, is a little update on the high school intersection and what's going on with the Mass DOT, right? And the DOT is the Department of Transportation. A few weeks ago, we had a very positive meeting with people from the DOT, from the Great Barrington Police Chief, the Highway Superintendent, Adam Hines and Smitty Pignatelli joined us. Steve Bannon was there in both roles, school committee chair and select board chair. Lee Davis joined us. And then 3 people from the Lenox office of the Mass DOT and 1 person from the Boston office. So for those who haven't been part of this conversation, we have concerns with the entrance and exit to Monument. And the particular concern is when mostly students, but for that matter all of us, are leaving the high school and turning left onto Route 7 going south. There have been a number of accidents, some serious there, and a number of smaller ones, right? You just go by and you see the signs on that island and they're twisted and mangled, and that's representative of what's going on there. And I think the hardest part of turning left there is because there's a right lane going north to come into the school. If there's a car in the turning lane and there's a car behind the turning lane, unless you're a really experienced driver, it's hard to see the car behind the car in the turning lane. And I think that's been the tension. It's also a hard place for buses to get in and out. For years, the police department shared a detail there. It's a tough place to be a police officer, dangerous. So we asked for several times an additional stoplight there, and for a variety of reasons, the DOT is not willing to do that. Some's tied to data, right? So they justify additional stoplights based on accidents. Some's probably tied to cost and other things. We've been meeting with them for the 12 years I've been here, and probably for 30 years before that. The likely best solution, long-term solution, is to run an additional driveway out of the high school somewhere past the greenhouse onto Monument Valley Road, right? And that's the long-term fix for that. And if we were able to do a high school project, we would include that in the high school project. It probably doesn't make sense to do that separately from a high school project. So we explored a range of other possibilities with the DOT, and we had a number of requests, and they've had some. Historically, they put in more flashing lights, they put in more signage, they've written school on Route 7 on both sides. And now they're willing to do a couple other things. So they're doing design work and will likely change the right turning lane to make it safer. And I know probably, Bill, when you were here, it was what it was, and then they changed it this way to make it safer. Now they're gonna change it again to make it even safer than what they did. So that's one piece of it. They may put some additional yellow like barriers between the two, and that's another piece of it. The really interesting thing that they've proposed is a relatively new technology that's called the early conflict warning system, or incident.
No one in this room knows the difference.
Right. And what this does is twofold. It's based on a sensor, and there would be one as you leave the high school that would watch electronically for traffic coming north, and it would flash and indicate in some way that there's an oncoming car, hold your horses, or that there's a break, and now's the time to go, right? So that's really interesting. There would also be a similar signal that's facing the exit that would alert oncoming traffic that somebody's trying to exit and to be mindful.
This is a system that's used throughout the country. It's not been used in Massachusetts before, as we understand it.
Right.
And the last time we talked to them, they were reluctant because they hadn't used it. Now there's enough data that it seems to be very effective. So
we're gonna try it, right? And I'm really excited that they went this far and we're so creative around the thing. So hopefully the combination of reworking the entrance and the right turn lane, some additional signage, this early detection warning system will make things better, and we'll continue. I don't know if you saw the high school video, which is like driving 101 and how to get out of the driveway. But we'll continue to do an education piece, and all those pieces together should make it better. And
So the same thing happens when you're trying to turn left coming out of the high school. There's people coming driving south on 7. The same thing happens. They have a turn lane. If you somebody have a turn lane and somebody comes behind them, right, depending on you're watching here, you don't realize, right, this guy stopped for you. So there's people out there.
yeah.
It works both ways. Right?
Yeah, no, I hear you. I'll go back to them around that. That's been, I think all the accidents have been connected to going south.
Yeah, going south, that's the way we're going.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. The other,
But the student was going south. You're right.
Wasn't this student was turning left towards
Yeah.
That's headed south.
How was that south?
Yeah, that's
But there was, to take Ann's point, many years ago, I don't know how many years ago, there was a rear ender on person coming from Stockbridge to go in. And that's very confusing. I did it yesterday, and thank God I know that there's 3, it's the third one in to go left. I see it, in vision, that sign is like this, that tells you to go around the island.
Yeah.
You cannot see it until you're almost on it. And I could envision, thank God it's never happened yet, somebody misconstruing that and going in the second exit and someone's going out.
Yeah.
So
They did talk to us also about, helping us look at redesigning the islands.
right.
And then there's a third thing that we've been looking at internally, which is extending much less traffic goes north to Stockbridge than goes south. But we do create a bottleneck when people are backed up trying to get out. And it would be easy to go north, but you can't go south. So the people going south hold up the cars going north. We may be able to extend the driveway slightly so that bottleneck doesn't happen and the folks going to Stockbridge can get out more easily.
Are we still pursuing the plan where the kids get dropped off and then walk up the hill?
We are still doing that.
Okay, good.
So that's in the morning, and that reduces a lot of cars in the morning. So I know not everybody loves walking up the hill, but
It's good exercise.
I think except on the really rainy days, if we've had too many of it, it's okay.
Is there a cost associated or that we'll have to cover associated with the signs, the painting, and all the new additions to this new fancy warning system? There's nothing that we'll have to pay for? All covered by the DOT?
That's my understanding.
Okay.
If we do the north exit to Stockbridge, I think that's on us, but all the other stuff, the DOT is handling.
And it's obviously passed, but I don't know if it was applicable, but was this included in the MSBA grant as like a downfall of our school building and our grounds?
We mentioned it in passing, but it's not reimbursable from the MSBA's perspective.
We would just include it in the project because it's simpler, it's part of the whole
Yeah.
project, but it's not gonna be
An
reimbursable.
additional need is the sort of the safety and the dangers that our school presents.
And one of the things, and the DOT was nice about this, we asked them to write a letter on our behalf to the MSBA, articulating this as part of, an important part of a reason to do the project. So they agreed to do that, and we'll share that. Right, I don't think that in of itself is going to push our project over the top, but it
Can't hurt.
Right, it can't hurt. So that's the update on that. Does anybody on the call have any questions about it? I think I got to most of the detail. If it's useful and the school committee wants me to invite somebody from the DOT to share updates on it, I could, but I think probably their time is better spent moving the work forward. And then we could talk about it with them later when it's largely done.
Did they give you a timetable to go? So it might take a few years.
No, it's surprisingly, I drove the other day, they were out there surveying, so.
And I signed off on a document, there's like a formal thing where they need me to sign off on a document so they can be on our land and look at things and doing that. And I did that a week ago. So I think things are, I think we're talking months, not years.
Yeah, that's surprisingly there.
I don't want to kick a dead horse here,
But you were
can I bring up, I still think, I'm thinking all these things as Peter was talking, driving out, people coming in. Why can't a red light solve all of these problems?
So
Am I missing something?
So Bill, I sat through hundreds of these meetings, almost literally. Hey, that light. This is the most receptive the state's been. Say thank you. And we'll see.
I think we should say thank you to the state. I think thank you to Peter, Steve, and Lee Davis, who have been banging their heads against this wall for a long time. I think
It just seems, it's so, well, it's
I mean, they have the reasons. We may not agree with them, but they have the reasons. And
I won't kick the dead.
they're the experts, and they were very receptive to us. They were very nice.
Yeah. I'm almost tempted to invite you to the next meeting. I don't think I can hear the answer one more time.
Francesca's a very nice person. She said no about 4 times to a light. First time we met, she was very clear, and I'm glad you up. She didn't string us along. She said that, you know.
The other thing, and I feel very supported by my colleagues, but Steve Souls reminding me that to lay people, a light is a panacea. but to actual traffic engineers, a light can create all sorts of problems. So ironically, guess where the most accidents are on that stretch of Route 7?
Yes.
At the Miami Valley light, right? So,
They were very clear about that.
yeah.
Okay.
So, I'm excited about this, and we'll, I think let's be gracious and accept it and try it out, and
I will never ask that again.
and gather some data.
You're proud of us.
Okay.
Steve, we'll talk about these, put them all over there.
We did hear, you know what's funny, I didn't quite hear you now, I'm figuring out what you said. We did have a conversation about a roundabout, and that's like a $2 million date, and we could do it, and it might actually solve all our problems, but I don't know if our community is ready for the one roundabout, yet alone two.
Let's move ahead to subcommittee reports. Policy is not met. Buildings and grounds. I know you met last
Yes,
night.
we did, we met last night, I'll talk about it here.
Yeah, please.
Again. Yeah, we had a great meeting, we met at the high school, and then, toured the tennis courts, one on our agenda. Last year, there's 7 tennis courts, courts 1 through 3 were, cracks were fixed. This coming year, 4 through 7 are gonna be fixed, but, it's getting to the point, unfortunately sooner rather than later, where just patching these cracks is gonna do it, and it's gonna be a relatively big ticket item to take out the courts and redo them properly, which will give us 10, 15 years of nice new courts. So again, nothing in the immediate future, but just something that in anywhere from 3 to 5 years, at some point down the line, that's going to be an issue for us. I'd just like to add that Paul Gibbons was there, brief us on the history since he was there from the beginning in school centers involvement, as well as the Berkshire Hills Tennis Association. So that was nice to tour those and see those firsthand for all of us. Then we actually moved on to the Collateral building, which is the building in front of the tennis court right on Route 7. Toured that. Main reason was our insurance will not insure that building anymore until the roof is on. They deemed it unacceptable. And Steve Zoll mentioned that we can go without insurance and the building's lost and we just wouldn't get anything for it. But it's not in the best shape, it's not in horrible shape, but we toured that, and it actually looks better inside than most of us were expecting. So I think it is salvageable if we want to, but if we want to insure, Steve, we got a couple estimates, around $18,000 for the new line, but when that goes up, if and when that goes up, that might change. So that's something, again, short term, we either have to decide, go to a roof and have no insurance, or put a roof on and get it insured.
Are you confident that number is not a big house?
Well, people were, but I guess with the way any home repairs are going these days, those are the 2 quotes you got, but I think
You probably have to take the layer and the plywood off.
Strip it down.
Yeah, you just have to strip it down.
Jason, I thought there was a third option, which is between doing a new roof or having it not insured, that we may be able to get some guidance from the building inspector and then appeal back to the insurance company.
Okay.
So that's what I thought was the third option.
Gotcha.
Well, what it does, it brings forth, that's known as the Borgen's house for a long time, and we used it for the collaborative and had a lot of meetings there. I think before we spend $18,000 or any money on it, we have to decide if we spend $18,000 and 3 years from now, the school committee decides to rip it down. That'd be somewhat embarrassing. So I think we have to decide what's the future of that building. And as also the farmhouse, as I said to Bill earlier, we also have the farmhouse that we've not done anything.
The one on Mine Road.
Yes, yeah, I mean, we have 2 buildings that, we just have to decide. It hasn't been an urgency, but as they need repairs, it's gonna be an urgency.
Yeah, I wonder, do we need a dormitory for new teachers?
Airbnb.
Right, and then we could rent it out in the summertime.
Yeah, there you house, all district offices.
Right.
But at the time, that was over $1 million.
Probably double.
Probably double.
Was the Oregon's house in district office at one time?
No,
We had classes.
What was it like back when I was in high school?
Collaborative. The collaborative was there. And then before then, I'm trying to think, the district offices used to be in Housatonic. And then they were here too.
Yeah, but they were on the top floor of Housatonic, then they took the whole building, and then they came here. That's my history.
All right, so after we toured the clock, the building, then proceeded actually up to the high school and got a good tour of the backside of the high school, went up to the outdoor classroom and got to experience that firsthand. And at that point, Steve kind of went over all his different summer work he's been doing in this crew. I know Peter touched on it and Christie as well, but just like a great job Steve and his crew have done getting building and facilities and stuff as hard as they can this summer. And specifically the high school, there was a couple little patch paving jobs he did from bus traffic and also places as far as 2 vans. Inside, 2 banks of lockers have been removed. Unfortunately, like many things these days, due to the steel shortage, the new lockers that are going to replace some of those haven't come in yet. He's hoping they're going to break them, but even without those, the area has been redesigned and the couches, different sitting areas in there. So looking forward to getting in there, looking at that, seeing how that's progressing. The nurses station has been improved, like we had earlier, that's done. Each wing of rooms changes, 2 spaces from 1, etc. The heating system in the H wing actually was updated. That was broken to the point where parts were obsolete, so we have digital control just in that building, which actually we test run to see how that works and be able to use not just in the high school, but in the elementary, middle school, those are getting close to 20 years old now, down the road. Finally, the high school, fortunately, both boilers are working, so this winter, if we get a cold winter, we should be in good shape. Middle school, the heat pump replacement has been going well. We got the new control board in, so we started to replace those at 6 degree or whatever, a couple of a year. Be seamless and going to the new control board. The outdoor classrooms will be starting next week. That schools as well. All the schools mowing has been the rain and grass mowing. It's been spraying every day. It's been more of a problem, but he's been doing a great job keeping up with that. Also the grounds. We might have touched on this last week. The grubs have been a real problem in all schools, especially the high school. It's actually getting a major problem with some of the athletic fields. I guess the worst is the outfield in baseball, which is the girls' soccer field, that these grubs, pack the grass, they kill it, and it turns to dust, and then it rains, and it's muddy, and then it dries, and it becomes really hard, and it can actually be safety factors. Unfortunately, the problem is that the only way to get rid of these grubs is to spray for them. You can only spray for them when they're close to the surface, which is, a couple weeks, I guess, in October, a couple weeks in May, which is, when the height of our spring and fall sports season. So going forward, we're going to have to try to find a plan with Carl to attack these grubs, spraying, but also be able to keep all our sports functioning the way they should. So that's upcoming. The elementary school, everything's going well there. Again, that gets a lot of wear and tear because it's being used 12 months of the year through a lot of connections on it as well. Also this year, with heating in the classrooms for all year, plus all summer, and the humidity in the summer has been taking an extraordinary amount of physical heating, but again, the staff doing as good job as they can keeping up, and should be good to go for entering the school year. Going forward, good shape, the chillers, as we touched on multiple times, the chiller here at the elementary school should be going out to bid the next week or two, and hopefully we'll get that fixed. The winter break, the last thing on the agenda was the MSBA, and there was been no official word. Again, that's coming up quickly, so Probably, end of August, so hopefully September, November, December, we'll hear positive from there. The last thing is, we're thinking that Rich, we need another joint meeting with the finance committee at some point in the next, hopefully sometime in the next few weeks, to get the two-track approach going, whether we get the MSP approval or not.
We'll get that scheduled this week for our finance meetings, remember, 200.
Yeah, that would be perfect.
Okay.
Hey, one thing.
Yeah.
Quick update on the MSBA. I'm working on sending them an updated letter. You probably saw in Eagle the recent census news. So our 3 towns population is up, as are Otis and Sandusfield, 2 of our feeder communities. And I think that's particularly unusual in Berkshire County. So I want to draw that to their attention. There's also been some articles around sort of the COVID bump in South County and how and that is after the census data was collected, right? But a number more people have moved in. We always share our enrollment numbers after October 1st, but I had the principals work with me to do a quick count, and as a district, we're up 60 plus students from last year, and which is a really big deal, right? And it may end up being more, maybe 70 when we get to October 1st. So I'm including that. And then obviously the capital skills grant around vocational ed is an important piece of our vision. And then there's some remarkable news about the additional revenue to the town of Great Barrington tied to the marijuana sales. So that gives Great Barrington a greater financial cushion. So that's important. And probably by the time I finish my note to the MSBA, I'll also be able to include, or hopefully be able to include, some good news about BAR. So I keep reaching out, keep pressing why the time is right.
That first email article, when you go online, they have an interactive map on there. It's our 3 towns, the other 2 feeder projects, we're the only ones that grew over the last 10 years. It's amazing.
It is.
Anybody else, I know a lot of you were at the meeting, is there anything else, anyone else wanted to add it?
We didn't visit it, but we talked about the track.
Yeah, sure, on the track.
Just that might be.
Yeah, similar to that tennis courts, the company that repairs the track also actually does the tennis courts, and it can only be repainted and patched so many times, and they said they can do it one more time and get about 3 more years out of it. At that point, they're gonna have, not redo the whole track, but actually have to pull up the rubber that's on top of the blacktop. They're pretty certain that the blacktop's gonna be okay, but just have to pull up that rubber, reapply it again. I think it's been done, I think he said like 3 or 4 times. 3 times since, schools have been open, so, that's something else that's not in the immediate future, but in the near future.
That goes to the file too of stuff. I mean, I don't know what we're gonna do in the field in the event of a high school project, but I would be advocating for that to be the stadium field being converted to a turf field.
Let's get it.
No more controversy.
Just for the sake of accuracy, offices for the school were in this building on the top floor. Then they went to Lusitana and then came back here.
Great.
That's my timeline. I'll stick to it. Anyone have any other questions for Jason? Ann, anything on superintendent's evaluation? Technology has not met. Finance will meet, has not, and nothing on district consolidation and sharing. Peter, personnel reports, anything to add?
No, I mean, I'm super excited about the new people as they come in. There's a little bit of game of musical chairs. We're picking up some people, we're losing a couple people, but nothing dramatic, and some summer appointments from work people did over the summer. And I particularly like to thank the people. This was a hard year to work in the summer coming off COVID, and a lot of people put in a lot of good work with young people, so I'd like to thank them for that.
Any old or new business before the committee? Any public comment?
Yes, there are.
Just state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
Steve, we've received some communications from this particular speaker, and
Yep.
a couple months ago, you very eloquently kind of laid out the parameters of the public comment period and how it's supposed to be used, and it's supposed to be non-divisive and productive. And I think we all anticipate that what we're about to hear is the use of this forum to propagate an absurd disinformation campaign that's been trolling on social media for a year. The way it was framed to us was particularly insulting and accusatory and intended to bully and instill
A
fear.
point of order. Point of order.
I'm objecting to the speaker.
I have a point of order.
You can wait, please.
I have a point of order.
Wait, thank you.
Joe McCarthy did too.
Go ahead.
I think so.
I move to adjourn.
I have a point of order. The public is allowed to speak. What are you talking about adjourning, please?
The public does not have a right to speak except at public hearings in the state of Massachusetts. So it's the will of the chairman to decide whether the public is going to speak. And your email spoke for yourself. And actually, besides that, we are under state order now to mask, so.
As a citizen, I have a right to speak for 3
You do
minutes.
not, only at public hearings. The will of the chair otherwise. So I have a motion to adjourn. I can't ignore a motion. Do I have a second? Seconded. It's a roll call vote. Ann?
Aye.
Jason?
No.
Molly?
Aye.
Bill?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Cory?
Aye.
Rich?
Aye.
And I, it's a 7-1 vote to adjourn. Thank you very much.